You know what happens when you eat just enough to feel comfortable? You stop moving. You sit back, loosen your belt, and you think, I'm good. But let me ask you this. How many dreams have died because someone got comfortable? The truth is, it's not the pain of hunger that ruins us. It's the comfort of being full of excuses, full of a good enough, full of I'll get to it later. Staying hungry means never letting that comfort trick you into thinking you've arrived. Think about the times in your life you felt unstoppable. It wasn't when everything was easy. It wasn't when you were cozy. It was when you were chasing something just out of reach. When you were a little scared, a little nervous, but absolutely alive. That's the energy of hunger. It keeps you sharp. It forces you to grow. It makes you resourceful. Because when you're hungry, you'll find a way. But here's the twist. Hunger isn't about lacking. It's about longing. It's not about starving. It's about striving. The world doesn't reward the person who had the most talent or the best timing. It rewards the person who stayed hungry long after everyone else was satisfied. So don't settle. Don't sit back after your first win and pat yourself on the back like it's over. Stay hungry for more love, more growth, more contribution, more life. Because when you stay hungry, you stay alive. Comfort is the enemy of growth. On the surface, comfort feels safe, inviting, even deserved. You've worked hard, you've pushed, you've struggled, and eventually you reach a place where things don't feel so uncertain anymore. Maybe you've got the job that pays the bills, maybe your relationship feels stable, maybe your daily routine runs like clockwork. And because it's working, because nothing is on fire, you start to tell yourself, if this is enough, I can relax now. But here's the trap. The moment you choose comfort over challenge, you start to lose the very edge that got you here in the first place. Growth only happens when you step into spaces that make you uncomfortable, when you try things that force you to stretch further than you thought possible. Comfort seduces you into thinking that you're safe, when in reality, you're slowly putting your potential to sleep. Think about a muscle. The only reason it grows is because it's pushed to the point of strain. You put it under pressure, you stretch it, you break it down just enough so that it rebuilds stronger. Without that tension, there is no growth. Imagine going to the gym and only ever lifting weights that feel easy. Sure, you won't sweat, you won't hurt, you won't fail, but you also won't change. You'll walk out the same way you walked in. Life works exactly the same way. Comfort tells you, don't risk embarrassment, don't go for that promotion, don't launch that idea, don't say how you really feel. It whispers that playing small is safer, and maybe it is safer, but it's also suffocating. Because the truth is, there's no such thing as standing still. You're either growing forward or sliding backward. Comfort gives the illusion of stability, but over time it quietly erodes your fire, your ambition, your hunger. You've seen people who settled into comfort. They had big dreams once. They talked about what they were going to do, where they were going to go, who they were going to become. And then one day, they stopped. They told themselves, this is enough. This will do. And you can see it in their eyes. They're alive, but not really living. They traded growth for safety, and they lost the spark that made them come alive. Now think about the people you admire most. Do they look like they chose the easy seat, the safe road, the comfortable option? Or do they look like they kept moving into discomfort again and again? Growth requires you to flirt with fear, to put yourself into places where you might fall, might fail, might look foolish. And the strange thing is, those are the very places where you discover strength, resilience, and creativity you didn't know you had. So yes, comfort feels good in the short term. It soothes. It makes you feel like you've made it. But if you want to live a life that excites you, if you want to look back and know you left nothing on the table, you can't get too cozy in that chair. The truth is, discomfort is a compass. If something feels scary, it usually means it matters. If it feels risky, it usually means there's growth on the other side. You don't need to abandon all comfort. This isn't about living in constant chaos. It's about refusing to let comfort dull your ambition. It's about recognizing when comfort has stopped being recovery and started being retreat. Growth lives in that thin line between what feels just out of reach and what feels impossible. And every time you step into that space, you expand who you are. So ask yourself, where have you gotten too comfortable? Where have you stopped pushing? Because things feel good enough. And then ask yourself the harder question. What would it look like to step back into the stretch zone to chase something that scares you just a little? Because the life you want, the person you want to become, is never built inside comfort. It's built just beyond it. Hunger fuels drive. It's the spark that pushes you to get up earlier, stay up later, and keep moving when most people quit. Without hunger, effort feels like a burden. With hunger, effort feels like a privilege, because every ounce of energy you pour into your goal feels connected to something bigger than the moment. Hunger is what separates those who merely wish from those who act with urgency. When you're hungry, you don't sit around waiting for the perfect conditions. You don't overthink every obstacle or wait for motivation to strike. Hunger doesn't let you wait. Hunger makes you resourceful. It teaches you to squeeze opportunity out of the smallest chances, to move forward even if you don't have the perfect tools or the ideal circumstances. People who are hungry don't say, "I don't have enough." They say, "I'll find a way." Think of the times in your life when you were truly hungry for something. Maybe it was when you desperately wanted to prove yourself. Maybe it was when you needed to change your situation because staying the same wasn't an option anymore. Or in those moments, you had energy you didn't even know existed. You stayed up working. You made calls you would normally avoid. You faced rejection and kept going anyway. Why? Why? Because hunger gave you a fire that comfort never could. Now, hunger isn't about desperation. It's not about clawing for scraps or moving from a place of lack. It's about desire. It's about having a vision of a life so vivid, so compelling, that the pull toward it is stronger than the pull of excuses. Hunger is wanting more, not because you're ungrateful for what you have, but because you know you're capable of more. It's the refusal to let your potential go untapped. Look at the people who break through in any field. They weren't necessarily the most talented, the most educated, or the most well-connected, but they were hungry. They had that relentless itch that wouldn't let them stop. They weren't content with almost. They weren't satisfied with a good enough. Hunger pushed them to show up on days when no one was watching, when there was no applause, when there was no guarantee of success. That's the difference. Talent can get you noticed, but hunger keeps you going long after talent isn't enough. The dangerous thing about losing your hunger is that life can still look fine. You can get by, make a living, be comfortable. But a finer has a way of dulling you, slowly numbing the parts of you that once burned for more. Hunger is what keeps that flame alive. It makes you restless in the best way. It keeps you searching, creating, striving. Without it, you risk becoming someone who coasts, who settles, who looks back one day and says, "I could have done more." Also gives meaning to the grind. Let's be real. The process of building anything worthwhile isn't glamorous. It's repetitive. It's frustrating. It's full of setbacks. But when you're hungry, those setbacks don't stop you. They energize you because each one becomes part of the story you're writing. You don't think, why me? You think, try me. That's the kind of resilience hunger creates. And here's the best part. Hunger is renewable. You don't run out of it unless you stop feeding it. Every time you chase a new challenge, every time you step into a new level, your hunger grows with you. The mistake people make is believing hunger is only for the desperate or the struggling. No hunger is for anyone who refuses to coast, anyone who knows they're capable of more, anyone who understands that satisfaction is temporary but growth is forever. So where does your hunger live right now? Maybe it's in your career. Maybe it's in your relationships. Maybe it's in the way you want to grow as a person. Wherever it is, nurture it. Let it drive you. Don't silence it just because other people are satisfied with less. Hunger is not a weakness. It's your greatest strength. It's the invisible engine behind every breakthrough, every success story, every transformation. Stay hungry, and you'll always have the drive to keep moving forward, no matter how high you climb. Peak energy comes from pursuit. Think about the moments in your life when you felt the most alive. It wasn't when you were sitting back comfortable with nothing to reach for. It wasn't when you had everything figured out. It was when you were chasing something, when you had a target in front of you that pulled you forward, something just beyond your current reach. That's when your body, your mind, your spirit seemed to click into gear. You woke up with urgency. You went to bed with fire still in your chest. There's a reason people who retire without a new pursuit often lose their spark. The energy that carried them for decades wasn't simply from work or from obligation. It was from pursuit. Having a reason to get up, a challenge to meet, a goal to chase, it fuels you in ways nothing else can. When pursuit disappears, energy evaporates. Because energy is tied to meaning, and meaning is born from movement towards something bigger. We like to think that rest, ease, and comfort will recharge us, but after a while they drain us. Do you know that sluggish feeling you get after lying on the couch all day? Or your body is rested, but your energy is gone. Why? Because humans aren't wired to feel alive by avoiding effort. We're wired to feel alive by chasing. Pursuit creates momentum, and momentum creates energy. It's why starting a new project makes you feel sharper. It's why setting a fitness goal gives you more energy in your day-to-day life, not less. It's why falling in love makes you feel like you can conquer the world. Pursuit puts you in a heightened state of awareness because your mind is fixated on something you don't yet have but deeply want. You notice opportunities you'd normally miss. You find solutions you'd usually overlook. Your entire system turns on because pursuit demands it. And here's the interesting part. Pursuit doesn't have to be grand to create peak energy. It doesn't have to be about building an empire or changing the world. It can be personal. Maybe it's mastering a skill, improving your health, deepening a relationship. What matters is that it stretches you. It has to matter enough that you feel pulled toward it. Yeah. That's when the pursuit begins to wake you up. People sometimes believe energy is about physical stamina, like having more hours in the day. But real energy, the kind that makes you feel unstoppable, doesn't come from how much sleep you got or how many calories you ate. It comes from how aligned you are with a pursuit that excites you. That's why you can stay up all night working on something you love and wake up buzzing with energy, but feel exhausted after a single day of doing something that doesn't inspire you. Energy isn't just physical, it's emotional, mental, spiritual. Pursuit feeds all of it. But here's the catch. Pursuit means risk. It means admitting that you don't already have what you want. It means putting your pride on the line, facing the possibility of failure, stepping outside the safe zone of a good enough. And that's why so many people avoid it. They want the energy, but not the risk. They want the fire, but not the discomfort. The irony is, by trying to protect themselves from risk, they cut themselves off from the very pursuit that would make them feel alive. The truth is, peak energy doesn't come from avoiding struggle. It comes from embracing it. When you're in pursuit of something that matters, even setbacks fuel you. Every obstacle becomes a test of your resilience. Every small win feels like rocket fuel. And even when you're tired, you keep going, because pursuit gives your exhaustion purpose. So ask yourself, what are you pursuing right now that excites you? Not what's expected of you, not what keeps you safe, but what lights you up when you think about it. If you don't have something, that's the first problem to solve. Because life without pursuit is flat. It's routine without vitality. It's existence without spark. The secret isn't in waiting for more energy so you can pursue your dreams. The secret is to choose a pursuit that matters enough to give you energy. That's where peak energy comes from. Not from resting more, not from wishing for more, but from moving towards something that stretches and excites you. Hunger creates resourcefulness. When you want something badly enough, you stop waiting for perfect conditions and start making use of what you already have. That's the magic of hunger. It sharpens your creativity. It makes you dig deeper, look harder, and discover solutions you would have ignored if everything had been easy. Think about the times when your back was against the wall. You didn't have enough time, enough money, enough connections, enough support. On paper, you should have failed. Yet somehow you found a way. You borrowed, you improvised, you took a risk, you learned fast. That wasn't luck. That was hunger pulling resources out of you that you didn't even know were there. People who aren't hungry waste time waiting for ideal circumstances. They say, I'll start when I have more money. I'll try when I know more. I'll go for it when everything lines up. But hunger doesn't give you that luxury. Hunger forces you to act with what you've got. It demands movement, even if it's messy, even if it's small. And ironically, that urgency is what gets you further than people who wait around for the perfect setup. History is full of people who started with almost nothing but turned that hunger into innovation. Entrepreneurs who built empires from a garage, artists who created masterpieces with scraps, leaders who moved nations with nothing but words. What they lacked in resources, they replaced with resourcefulness. Hunger taught them to see opportunity where others saw obstacles, to use every ounce of what they had instead of complaining about what they didn't. The truth is, too much comfort kills creativity. When you have everything handed to you, you don't think deeply, you don't stretch, you don't innovate. Hunger, on the other hand, forces you to experiment, to adapt, to try paths that aren't obvious. It keeps your mind sharp because it knows survival and progress depend on finding a way forward. And hunger doesn't just make you resourceful with external things, it makes you resourceful with yourself. When you're truly hungry for change, you tap into reserves of discipline, courage, and resilience you didn't know you had. You push yourself to learn skills faster. You step into rooms that intimidate you. You take risks that would normally scare you. You surprise yourself with how much you're capable of because hunger refuses to let you quit. Think of a time when you wanted something so badly that you couldn't stop thinking about it. Maybe it was a goal, maybe it was an opportunity, maybe it was a turning point in your life. Remember how resourceful you became? You found hours in the day you swore you didn't have. You made sacrifices that once seemed impossible. You learned things on the fly, asked for help when pride wanted you to stay silent, and tried again after every failure. That's the kind of innovation hunger unlocks. The danger of losing hunger is that you also lose that resourcefulness. Resourcefulness. You start depending on conditions being right. You tell yourself you'll only act if everything feels safe, guaranteed, predictable. And life doesn't work that way. Opportunities rarely show up wrapped perfectly for you. They come in messy, inconvenient, risky packages. Hunger is what gives you the boldness to rip them open anyway. When you're hungry, you become the kind of person who creates momentum out of scraps. You stop saying, I don't have enough, and you start saying, I'll make it enough. That's where breakthroughs happen, not in abundance, but in the scarcity that forces you to stretch further than you ever thought you could. So if you feel like you don't have all the tools right now, good. That's not your disadvantage. It's your advantage. It's your advantage. Because hunger will train you to think creatively, act decisively, and persist relentlessly. And once you build that kind of resourcefulness, it never leaves you. It becomes part of who you are, part of the way you approach every challenge. Hunger isn't just about desire. It's about inventiveness. It's about transforming what looks like limitation into leverage. And if you stay hungry, you'll never be without a way forward because you'll always find one. Hunger is about longing, not lacking. Too often people confuse the two. They think that being hungry means being desperate, that it means you're incomplete or broken until you achieve what you're chasing. But real hunger isn't born out of emptiness. It's born out of vision. It's the longing to experience more, to grow beyond where you are, to stretch into the version of yourself that you know exists but haven't fully lived yet. When you operate from lack, you chase things because you believe they'll fix you. You tell yourself, when I get that job, I'll finally feel secure. When I'm in that relationship, I'll finally feel whole. When I make that money, I'll finally be enough. I'll finally be enough. That's not hunger. That's desperation. And desperation often leads to choices that hurt more than they help. It makes you settle for quick fixes, shortcuts, things that numb the ache, but don't actually move you forward. But longing is different. Longing comes from a place of already knowing you're enough and still wanting more. Not because you need it to validate you, but because you refuse to waste your potential. Longing says, I'm grateful for what I have, but I'm not done yet. I'm not finished growing, not finished learning, not finished living at my highest level. That's what real hunger is about. It's not filling a void, it's chasing expansion. Think about a musician who has already written a hit song. They don't need to write another one to prove they're talented. But the longing to create, to express, to connect through music, eat, that's hunger. Or an athlete who's already won a championship. They don't need another medal to prove their worth, but the desire to push their limits to see how far they can go. That's hunger. Longing makes you curious. It makes you restless in the best way. It pulls you toward growth because you know there's always more inside you waiting to come out. And here's the truth. Longing keeps life exciting. If you stop longing, you stop expanding. You settle into routines, you plateau. You convince yourself that comfort equals happiness. But comfort without longing quickly turns into stagnation. You don't feel alive when you're only maintaining. You feel alive when you're reaching. The beauty of longing is that it's not a rejection of the present. It's not about saying, oh, what I have isn't good enough. It's about saying, oh, what I have is wonderful, but I know there's more. Gratitude and hunger can live together. In fact, they need each other. Gratitude keeps you grounded. Hunger keeps you moving. One without the other either leaves you restless or leaves you stagnant. When you understand hunger as longing, you stop treating it like a flaw. You stop apologizing for wanting more. You realize that longing is part of what makes you human. It's the force that pushes civilizations forward, the reason we invent, create, explore, and evolve. Every major breakthrough in history came from someone who wasn't lacking. They were longing to see further, to do better, to live more fully. But longing requires honesty. You have to admit to yourself what you really want, not just what sounds safe, acceptable, or convenient. That's where many people trip up. They suppress their true desires because they're afraid of judgment, afraid of failing, afraid of wanting something they might not get. But if you don't allow yourself to long for more, you rob yourself of the fire that hunger brings. So ask yourself, what do I long for? Not because I feel empty, but because I know there's more life to be lived. More life to be lived. Where do I feel that pull inside me? The quiet voice that says, you're capable of more than this. Follow that voice. That's your hunger. Not a weakness, not a wound, but a calling. Hunger as longing is powerful because it's sustainable. Lack burns you out. Longing lights you up. Lack makes you desperate. Longing makes you determined. Lack leaves you anxious. Longing leaves you inspired. When you embrace hunger as longing, you turn your life into a pursuit of growth, joy, and expansion, not a scramble to patch up holes. Stay hungry not because you're incomplete, but because you're alive. And living fully means always longing for the next level of yourself. The world rewards persistence. Talent gets you noticed. Luck gives you a chance. But persistence is what carries you across the finish line. Most people quit long before they ever reach their potential, not because they weren't capable, but because they didn't keep going. They let setbacks, delays, or discomfort convince them that their dream wasn't meant for them. But the truth is, the world doesn't hand out its best prizes to the quickest starters. It hands them out to the ones who refuse to stop. Persistence is the quiet force that separates the extraordinary from the ordinary. It doesn't always look glamorous. Sometimes it looks like showing up to practice when nobody's watching. Sometimes it looks like writing draft after draft after draft until the words finally make sense. Sometimes it looks like hearing a no so many times that anyone else would have given up, but you decide to knock on one more door. That's persistence. It's not flashy, but it builds momentum brick by brick until one day people call you lucky without realizing how many years you kept going. The reason persistence is so powerful is because life is designed to test you. Every dream worth chasing comes with roadblocks, delays, failures, detours. Those aren't signs to stop. They're filters. They weed out the ones who are half-hearted from the ones who are truly committed. If it were easy, everyone would do it. But persistence proves you're serious. Persistence signals to the world, I'm not going anywhere until this is mine. Think about any story of success you admire. Behind every breakthrough was a long stretch of persistence that nobody saw. The best-selling author with the shelf of rejections before the first a yes. The business leader whose first ideas failed before the winning one took off. The athlete who trained in the shadows for years before stepping into the spotlight. Their greatness wasn't in avoiding failure, it was in outlasting it. And here's the secret. Persistence doesn't just get you results, it transforms you. Every time you push through difficulty, you build resilience. Every time you choose to try again instead of quitting, you strengthen your character. Persistence turns you into someone who can be trusted with success because you've proven that you won't collapse the moment things get tough. But persistence isn't blind repetition. It's not about doing the same thing over and over, hoping for a different outcome. It's about adjusting, learning, improving, while still refusing to give up. The key is flexibility in method, but firmness in purpose. You keep your eyes locked on the goal, but you're willing to adapt your strategy as you learn what works. That combination of stubborn vision and flexible action is unbeatable. The danger most people face is that they expect quick wins. They set a goal, and when results don't show up immediately, they convince themselves it isn't working. But persistence requires patience. It requires faith in the unseen progress. Just because you can't see the results yet doesn't mean nothing is happening. Often, growth is invisible before it becomes undeniable. The roots take hold underground long before the plant breaks the surface. Persistence is staying the course even when the roots are the only thing growing. There's also a deeper reward to persistence. It earns respect. People admire those who endure, who stay in the game longer than expected. It inspires others, not because of the final victory alone, but because of the relentless spirit it took to get there.
Yeah.
Persistence tells the world, this matters to me too much to quit. That kind of resolve is magnetic. It draws opportunities, allies, and eventually results. So when you hit resistance, and you will, remember this. Resistance isn't a stop sign, it's a test. It's asking you, how badly do you want this? The ones who answer with persistence, the ones who answer eventually win. Not because they never stumbled, but because they always stood back up. They always stood back up. The world is full of talented people who quit too early, full of bright ideas that never saw the light of day, full of almost successes that could have been great stories if someone had just pushed a little further. Don't let yours be one of them. Keep going, keep learning, keep adjusting. Because the world doesn't reward the first to start, it rewards the last to stop. Never settle after small wins. Success has a strange way of turning into a trap. You work hard, you push yourself, you fight through challenges, and finally, you get a win. Maybe it's landing that promotion, hitting that financial milestone, reaching that personal goal you set for yourself months or years ago. And for a moment, it feels incredible. You celebrate, you breathe, you let yourself enjoy it. But then something dangerous happens. You start to think the journey is over. You convince yourself that this is enough. The problem with settling after small wins is that it tricks you into believing you've arrived when in reality, you've only just begun. A win isn't the end. It's evidence of your potential. It's proof that you're capable of more than you thought. But too many people treat that first victory like a finish line instead of a launch pad. They stop moving, stop stretching, stop staying hungry. And in doing so, they rob themselves of everything else they could have become. Think about someone who trains for a marathon. They cross the finish line and the crowd cheers. That moment feels like the peak. But what happens if they decide that's enough? That they'll never run again, never challenge their body again, never push beyond that one accomplishment? The strength they built starts to fade. The discipline that carried them weakens. The fire that made them train in the first place dies down. The win, instead of fueling growth, becomes a comfort zone. It's not that small wins don't matter. They do. They give you confidence, they build momentum, they show you progress, but their purpose is not to make you stop. It's to push you forward. Every win should ask the question, what's next? Because the moment you stop asking that, you start slipping backward. Settling after small wins creates complacency. You stop striving because you've convinced yourself that you've made it. But success doesn't stay alive on yesterday's effort. It requires new energy, new goals, new hunger. The person who wins once and stops is quickly passed by the person who refuses to let a single win define them. Look at the people who sustain greatness. They don't let their first victory be their last. They treat small wins as milestones, not end points. Each accomplishment is a reminder of what's possible and a challenge to see how much further they can go. That's how champions think. They celebrate, but they don't settle. The truth is, settling after a small win can be more dangerous than failing. Failure wakes you up. It makes you reflect, adapt, and push harder. But a win can lull you to sleep. It can make you feel like the work is done, when in reality, the work is only beginning. That's why staying hungry is so important. It protects you from mistaking progress for completion. Ask yourself, where have you let a small win become your excuse to stop pushing? Maybe you lost a little weight and told yourself that was enough, instead of continuing toward true health. Maybe you hit a career milestone and decided to coast instead of asking how you could grow further. Maybe you had one good idea and rode it until it lost its spark instead of daring to create again. The danger isn't in winning, the danger is in stopping there. Small wins should fuel your vision, not shrink it. They should raise the bar, not lower it. They should give you proof that you can go further, not permission to stop. The purpose of achievement isn't to make you settle. It's to remind you that you're capable of more than you believed yesterday. So celebrate your wins, yes. Be proud of them. Let them energize you. But don't confuse them with the destination. Don't let comfort creep in and convince you the journey is over. Because the truth is, the best version of you is still ahead. The biggest wins are still waiting. And you only reach them if you refuse to settle after the small ones. Stay hungry after every victory. Let every accomplishment be the starting line for the next pursuit. Because the moment you stop climbing, you stop living. Staying hungry equals staying alive. Not just alive in the sense of breathing and existing, but alive in the way that matters. Feeling energy, passion, and fire in your veins. The people who truly live are the ones who never stop chasing, never stop stretching, never stop stretching, never stop asking what's next. Hunger isn't about being unsatisfied with life. It's about refusing to let life go stale. It's about keeping that spark lit so every day feels like it carries meaning. When you lose your hunger, you don't suddenly collapse. You fade, slowly, slowly. You go through the motions, checking boxes, repeating the same routines, doing what's necessary but never what's extraordinary. You wake up, you work, you eat, you sleep, and you call that living. But deep down, you know it isn't. It's existing. Life without hunger becomes mechanical, predictable, and numb. But when you stay hungry, something shifts. Every day feels like it holds possibility. You see challenges as invitations, not punishments. You look at opportunities with curiosity instead of fear. You feel alive because you're engaged with life, not just passing through it. Hunger gives you a reason to get up with urgency and go to bed feeling like the day mattered. Staying hungry isn't about greed. It's not about endlessly chasing more just for the sake of more. It's about vitality. It's about keeping yourself in a state of growth, because growth is what makes us feel alive. The moment we stop growing, something inside us starts to die. Hunger keeps us moving toward growth, and growth keeps us connected to life. So, connected to life. Think of the people you admire most, not just for what they achieved, but for the way they lived. They didn't stop after one accomplishment. They didn't settle into a chair and say, "That's it? I'm done." They kept seeking, kept exploring, kept creating. Their hunger made them vibrant. Their hunger kept them alive long after others their age had stopped reaching. That's not coincidence. That's the direct result of staying hungry. Hunger is also what keeps joy alive. When you're hungry for new experiences, you don't get bored. You try new things, meet new people, push into new spaces. That constant pursuit of more depth, more adventure, more meaning, it fills your life with color. Without hunger, joy fades into monotony. With hunger, even ordinary days feel infused with possibility. And here's the truth. Staying hungry doesn't just make life exciting. It makes it purposeful. We all need something to move toward, something that demands more of us than just survival. Hunger gives us that direction. It reminds us that life isn't about coasting. It's about creating, building, and contributing. When you're hungry, you're not just marking time, you're making impact. But staying hungry is a choice. It means rejecting the voice that says, slow down, stay comfortable, don't risk anything. It means pushing past the temptation to coast after a win or to give up after a setback. It means waking up every day and deciding, I'm not done yet. Hunger is not something you're born with. It's something you feed. You feed it with goals, with visions, with challenges that scare you enough to grow. And that's the essence of being alive. Growth. Life without growth is just repetition. Life with growth is adventure. Hunger ensures you keep growing, keep stretching, keep living at full volume instead of fading into quiet comfort. So if you ever find yourself drifting, bored, or stuck in routine, ask yourself, where have I lost my hunger? Where have I lost my hunger? Where have I settled for survival instead of striving for life? Then reignite it. Set a new challenge. Dream a bigger dream. Put yourself in situations that make you feel nervous and alive again. Because staying hungry isn't just about achievement. It's about vitality. It's about keeping your spirit awake and refusing to let life pass you by. When you stay hungry, you don't just exist, you live. So here's the truth. Hunger is not just about ambition, it's about life itself. Comfort will tempt you. Small wins will try to satisfy you. Setbacks will test you. Setbacks will test. But every step of the way, hunger is the force that keeps you sharp, keeps you moving, keeps you alive. It's not about lacking, it's about longing. It's not about desperation, it's about desire. The world doesn't reward the ones who had the perfect plan or the easiest start. It rewards the ones who stayed hungry long after others settled. The ones who treated every win as a beginning, not an ending. The ones who embraced discomfort, persisted through resistance, and kept chasing growth when comfort whispered, stop here. So don't let yourself drift into survival mode. Don't mistake existing for living. Feed your hunger with new challenges, new visions, new reasons to get up every morning with fire in your chest. Because as long as you stay hungry, you'll keep growing. As long as you stay hungry, you'll keep creating. As long as you stay hungry, you'll stay alive. You'll stay alive. Now the question is, how hungry are you willing to be?